Welcome to this week's Oxford Analytica video briefing. I'm Stephanie Hare. I'm the senior analyst here at Oxford Analytica, and I'm joined in conversation today with my colleague Richard Tooby, our analyst for Russia and the CIS. Richard, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello.
Now, you and I have been very busy for the past 2 weeks, but particularly this week because the European Union and the United States issued fresh and very tough sanctions against Russia for its response or lack thereof in Ukraine. So we need to cover a number of points today in this video. So let's see if we can take it from the top and say the reason these sanctions were imposed in the first place was that Russia has been accused by the EU and the US of continuing to arm the separatists in the Ukraine and preventing access to the crash site of the Malaysian Airlines flight MH17, which was shot down on July 17th. So do we see any improvement to the access to the site for the investigators or the repatriation of the remaining bodies?
Well, just the latest developments today is there has been a sort of very brief kind of pause in the fighting around the crash site. The Ukrainian military have actually stopped operations, and some OSCE observers have actually been able to get to the site. But there are still a lot of bodies unaccounted for at the site, and there's still, an awful lot of work that needs to be done to, repatriate those. But overall, the security situation is still, very difficult. Just today, the Ukrainian parliament has kind of ratified a tentative agreement whereby around about 950 Dutch and Australian armed personnel maybe will go to the site to try and secure it, which, that I think will be very difficult to achieve simply because the security situation in the east is so fluid, and it's still not clear really how much control the government have over this and whether the separatist forces would actually even allow this. And I think a lot of commentators will be saying that this is actually going to massively inflame tensions, putting a sort of multinational force on the ground.
Now, tensions are, of course, already raised by the fact that we've got these sanctions in place. And I guess the question that's on everyone's minds at the moment is, what possible response or retaliation can we expect to see from Russia? So what considerations might be on Vladimir Putin's mind at this point?
Well, I think the key thing from him will be, trying to reduce the effect of sanctions. We'll see a lot of tough rhetoric coming out of Moscow over the next few days about how, they're going to become much more self-sufficient in their defence industries, and particularly in the creation of this Russian national payment system. And there's been various problems for Visa and MasterCard, and this kind of drawing in almost to sort of make Russia more self-sufficient. I think we will probably see, we've obviously seen some problems with Polish fruit imports into Russia, but I think we will see particularly more Russian response to the kind of states of the former Soviet Union, former sort of communist states in Eastern Europe, who are kind of it has that kind of pressure over from either a gas point of view or imports like Moldova with its wine imports into Russia. But I think as well, Putin will be looking to probably use the Ukrainian gas issue, which is still going on, which has gone a bit quiet over the last few weeks because of everything that's happened. But obviously the winter is actually not that far away again. It's starting to approach. So I think he will look to kind of use this as further kind of leverage that, to reduce sort of sanctions.
Now, these sanctions are there, and there's a lot of debate at the moment in terms of the impact both on the Russian economy, but of course the blowback potentially for the EU, and certain EU member states are more vulnerable than others, and we've covered that in our analysis, and also in the US. But I guess perhaps the wider question that I have for you is whether or not you think this is going to bring about the political solution that's necessary to end the fighting in Ukraine and restore peace to that region, that troubled region. So what do you think about that? What's the sort of outlook now?
Well, I think going forward, really, the next 10 days to 2 weeks is really going to be critical. Over the last few weeks, we have seen the Ukrainian military making sort of steady advances, retaking various towns as they kind of move in on Donetsk, which is the real kind of centre now of the separatist movement. But I don't really expect the sanctions to stop violence in the east. I think that Putin, as we have said in some of our coverage in the last few days, I think is probably facing potentially the biggest challenge to his presidency, possibly since the kind of struggle against the oligarchs about 10 years ago when he, fought against Yukos and Mikhail Hodorkovsky. And I think that Putin is caught in this very difficult position now between abandoning the separatists and the kind of the defence of ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine, which he has built a lot of credibility on. His approval rating is 85% following the annexation of Crimea and the defence of ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. But at the same time, he will be very aware now of the incredible damage that is being done on a daily basis through the sanctions and also through the indirect effects like capital flight and loss of investor confidence from Western investors to the Russian economy. So on one hand, he will have nationalistic elements within the security forces and the political establishment who are saying, we must intervene, we cannot lose in eastern Ukraine, and he will know that. But on the same side, on the other side, having the sort of more maybe pro-Western, business-orientated Russian elite who are saying, we have to stop this now, otherwise the economy will be in tatters. So I think he is really in a terrible dilemma. But ultimately, Putin has built so much credibility on this sort of proud, strong Russia, this defence of ethnic Russians, and that really, I think he simply won't be able to just walk away from it. And what he really needs in the long term, if we're looking long term, Putin needs to be able to sell whatever now happens as a victory. Even if maybe the Ukrainian forces, Kiev forces, do consolidate the east and win, he has to be able to sell it and get a lot of concessions to be able to sell it to people in Russia as, oh yes, we still have actually won and we've defended the rights of ethnic Russians. I don't expect the Ukrainians to be able to retake Crimea. I think that is a sort of separate issue really now to what is going on in the east. But I think Putin's going to have some major challenges in the next 10 days.
And one last point that I'd love to end on, of course, is the fact that we have political flux within Ukraine itself. What's the outlook there?
Well, very difficult. I mean, just the most recent developments, the Parliament have actually rejected the resignation of Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, who resigned last week after the European Choice coalition of Fatherland, Freedom and Udar sort of broke up. So we'll have to see how that goes in the next few days, but really Poroshenko will be wanting to consolidate his power and call fresh parliamentary elections, which we think will be in probably October, November, to create a parliament that is more sort of seen as pro-Ukrainian. Because at the moment, the parliament is the parliament that was there when President Yanukovych was in power, so you still have a lot of people from the Party of the Regions and people who are seen as kind of pro-Russian, which to some extent is hindering Poroshenko's kind of movements really and what he can do. So I think the long term for Ukraine from a political point of view will be definitely getting these parliamentary elections sorted and trying to kind of oust the kind of pro-Russian sort of elements within the parliament.
Richard, thank you very much for that analysis. And thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please contact us via our website.